The job of a director lives in the confine of like the creative vision.
Yeah.
Whereas the job of a producer lives in the confine of the real world.
Yes.
Yeah.
Welcome everyone to the Lucky Goat podcast. Thank you all for being here with us. My name is Aiken. I am an executive producer here at Lucky Goat. Today I'm joined by Yenny and Kyle.
Hey, I'm Yenny. I'm a creative director and producer at Lucky Goat.
My name is Kyle. I'm a director and producer at Lucky Goat.
Today I want to start the conversation by asking, I feel like there's a lot of people who know what a director is, DP, like those roles and terms are very popular. Everyone wants to be a DP or a director.
Yeah.
But no one wants to be a producer. No one knows what a producer is.
Yeah, I don't think it's that no one wants to be. I think they don't know that job exists or what the real goal is.
To that point, what is a producer? What does a producer do?
I'd say the producer is like the mommy or daddy of the whole production.
Daddy's wallet.
Daddy's wallet, and also the only person that's not thanked, that doesn't receive any thanks at the end of a prod.
It's more, that I think too, when you think about popularity, it's like, you think of Scorsese movies. You don't think of Scorsese's producer, you know?
Yeah.
And oftentimes it cannot happen without someone who's really good with all the roles that a producer has to fill.
For sure.
It's really the bridge between the art and the logistics of making something happen.
100%. And like to your point, Yenny, they're really often like the unsung heroes.
Yeah.
Like a great producer. If you're working with a really great producer, you won't really know that
There is a producer,
you know? Like their job is to hold so the way I often like to explain the role of a producer is like a director has a vision, and they want all these cool things for the production. It's a producer's job to bring all of those pieces to the director,
but also to be nice.
All those pieces.
But also to be logical about it. Like, yes, the producer is the one who basically sails the boat, is behind the steering wheel, but he's also the villain.
What do you mean by the villain?
They're also the villain. They are like, it sucks to say, that's why producing is such like unpopular job in the industry, is because like as a producer you have to learn how to say no and to keep saying no. You know, like let's say director, you want to give them the creative freedom to do whatever they want, you know, like make the most amazing project that you can think about, but I have to be realistic and be like, hey, listen, that extra shot, I'm sorry, but no. And then sometimes it can like turn into fights, you know, and like arguments. But at that point, like, because you're the one leading the whole ship, you have to like stay calm and still be firm. No.
Like the job of a director lives in the confine of like the creative vision. Yeah. Whereas the job of a producer lives in the confine of the real world.
Yes. It's how can this amazing vision suit the reality that we're gonna deal with to make this vision.
100%. What do you think makes a really good or bad producer?
A really good producer, I think having good communication skills, because oftentimes too, when you get to a certain level of productions, the producer is also the mediator between a director's vision and the client that it's for, or for the market that you're trying to create for, whether it's a certain genre for a film, or if it's a mandate that you know will benefit a company based off of the director's vision.
For sure. I think there is also a distinction to be made between a producer for like a film and a producer for commercial clients. Those are going to be very different often. Well, for us at least, and my job as an executive producer at Lucky Goat is like I'm the liaison between the client and the rest of the creative team. Right. I'm that point of contact. And to your point, when you were saying the producer's job is almost to like make sure that the project serves the client the way it's supposed to serve him, it goes beyond that. It's like you're representing the client on the production side. Like you have the client's best interest. You have the client's best interest on the production side. Whereas the director, yes, obviously their vision and their ideas will also suit that, but their job is more to like make sure that the creative vision happens, and like the way that they envisioned it. You know?
I'd say a good producer knows how to keep the stress levels down. Like if the director is completely stressed, means the producer is doing something wrong.
Oh, for sure.
You know, that means like scheduling was probably not properly made. The contracts are probably not properly distributed. You know, like communication has been lacking, and that creates a lot of stress in the work environment. But if a producer, like I say this, like it's a successful shoot when at the end of a production the director is all happy, fine and dandy, having a high of his life, while the producer is completely dead. Then you know, like, the project was amazing. Because that means the producer has been absorbing everybody's stress and concern, and was still able to like be a good producer to like steer them and stay, you know, grounded. You know, be like the pillar of the whole production.
And I think too, it goes without saying, when you talk about film, but even higher budget commercial work, a producer has to understand the workflow of the multiple departments that might be involved, and understand how to have check-ins and keep people on their tasks and on their deadlines, even for pre-production purpose. Understanding how to make sure the communication flow between parties is working, and understand how to make sure everyone's on top of their own responsibilities, and to really be like able to communicate in a way that doesn't add stress and also keeps people on track and communicating within each other.
I'd say like to get to that point of like being able to communicate with everyone, a good producer is usually someone nobody actually wants to become a producer right from the bat. You know, as soon as you hear about the cinema industry, everybody wants to be a DP, a director. I want to do this big vision. Like there's this like funny joke, this saying like in the industry that a producer is just a failed director.
Yes, you hear it so many times.
Because like
all good producers are failed directors.
Yes, because to be a director, you have to be able to be a jack of all trades. You have to understand all, you know,
many workflows,
right? But the extra edge is the creative edge. And some people don't have that creative edge, that extra creative edge, but they do have a creative understanding, and they have a logistical edge. And that's when a good producer comes in the game, because they're just like, I understand everything, every moving pieces of a production. But I know that my skills are better off to be the one actually holding the steering wheel, and not the one being in front of the mast and just pointing like, I want to go there. That's the director's job, you know, like I want to go to Fifi Island.
And a great addition to that is a very good problem solver. It's a really almost exclusively a problem solving job.
It is just that. It is 100% just problem solving. You're just problem solving constantly, from, you know, talking to the client and negotiating with the client, what the client wants and what the client needs, to budgets, to the team, to, you know, hey, I want a nice car for this shot. Well, I don't have the budget for it. It's like, what's a solution for that? You're constantly in a problem solving like mindset. And that's the job of a producer. And I feel like it's also why it's not a popular like fancy job, like flashy job. It's like problem solving. That's your job, you know.
Like, it's also not fancy, because like let's say as a producer, you've worked on the biggest projects you've ever done, you know, with a brand that you love. You just have to know that as soon as a project comes out, you're not getting any of the glory as a producer. This is just like personal, you know, private bragging rights. You can't just, you know. That's why producing is
like
not
the general public. No one really knows or cares about what the producer does.
No one cares,
for sure. It's like it doesn't have. It's the unsung hero. It's like that person that's like doing a lot of the heavy lifting and the heavy load in the background, 100%. But is not in. That doesn't reap the glory for it.
The glory, Oh my God, the sound, the music is amazing. The art, the costumes. You know, every department is getting sung. You know. Except for the producers. Obviously, like the technicians are also not like kind of unsung, but because it's not a creative head, right? Like it's not a head of a production. Like I'd say, like from all the heads, like producing is not.
I feel for me the biggest thing whenever I finish a production, and like what makes it such a gratifying like job, is knowing from all my department heads that like they were happy with the final result, that it came like the execution of their ideas was actually what they envisioned from the start.
Yeah.
That is incredibly satisfying.
Yeah.
It's like, you put the pieces together so that what you guys had on your pitch decks and like your mood boards is actually what we see and deliver.
And there's also a way of looking at it too, and this is more popular in the film circuit, but a lot of roles, heads of department roles, come in pairs. You have, your DP and your gaffer, their go-to, they're going to be working with the person they've trusted the most over the course of their career.
Yep.
You have your art director and your production designers. You have your sound engineers and your boom ops, or you're the person looking over the microphones. You have your director and your producer. Usually producer directors are very strong duos that have been through a lot of shit, and they've gotten better and better and better at their own workflow. Director has the vision, producer knows how to manage that director's vision.
How to tame that wild beast.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And also being financially savvy is a really big thing too.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
I think you could be very good with logistics, but you may not be great with money and budgeting. You could be great with budgeting, you may not be super logistical at times.
A good communicator, for example. Or,
yeah.
Yeah, you take a lot of responsibility for pretty much as a producer, the responsibility of the production falls onto you. Like, yes, the director is like leading the creative and is at the head of that, but in the real world, it's the producer's job to make sure that on the money side, the budget side, like the logistical side, things go right.
Yeah.
And if things go wrong, the first person that everyone looks at is the producer.
And you have to be able to take that as well. Even if a mistake may not be from you, it has to be.
If there's an accident on set, it's the producer's problem.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. The stress level, like being able to keep a calm and cool head during a chaotic event is very, very important. If you're not that type of person and you don't have that temperament, producing might not be for you.
A big thing about that is, especially on, smaller budget or smaller scale production, your producer has to know how to work with HR situations, whether it's conflict, whether it's bickering or misalignment between departments, knowing how to resolve conflict without creating more stress, and knowing how to work with people who are under a lot of pressure, and that pressure may come out between themselves, between each other. You have to be able to take that and know how to resolve those communication problems.
You also have to be a mediator.
Mediator, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Have you ever had to mediate something?
Yes, a lot of times. And I think mediate between two heads of departments or two people on set is one thing, but also mediating conversations between me and the director, like trying to solve how, like, often in our experience working together, me and Yenny, like now we're like years and years, of experience of working together. But in the start, it was very difficult, like, to find your flow, and understanding how he sees things and how he works, and he understanding my workflow as well. Like, that was very difficult at the start, but I'm sure that's true for most duos of directors and producers. And the job of you mediating that conversation and making sure that at the end of the conversation we're learning and we're growing from it, and it's not coming from a place of emotion, like, I hate the fact that you do this and I can't work with this type of person, or like that's not constructive. It's not really, you're not building, So
along that too, producer, you can't have any bias. I know producers who used to be in the G&E department, or they used to be in the art department, they used to be directors, and oftentimes, well, not oftentimes, but I've seen it happen where a producer can be really catering to lighting needs, but not very catering to distributing the same love and attention to, like, production design and art direction needs, or sound even.
So basically, like,
budget gets mishandled and goes to the wrong places.
A good producer is like a father with a bunch of children.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it is exactly that.
All your kids come home for Thanksgiving.
Yeah,
I gotta spend time with each of them.
Baby mamas. Cut that out.
Yeah,
exactly.
But going back to the thing about mediating, like, often conversations or problems in communication can be solved by just like, hey, let me take you and you both have issues with each other, you're yapping to me about that person, and that person's yapping to me about you.
Yeah,
let me just pull you aside, we'll have a 5 to 10 minute conversation and it's done, you know.
Yeah.
And that solves everything.
Yeah,
it's like you have to be able to confront, and often a lot of people in this industry don't like confrontation, or can't really deal with confrontation that well. So easy solution is just like pull people aside and let them talk, and you be there to like mediate that conversation and like be a voice of reason.
Exactly.
That could solve a lot of issues, because if you don't do that, then maybe you're on day 1 of a 5-day shoot and something happens, a little situation happens, people hold grudges, and you're down to like day 4 or 5, and now nothing gets done on set. No one loves it, likes working with each other. There's just a very bad energy, and that carries over to the result and the product that you're delivering to the client.
And then also like it also carries on to the next project, because the thing is in the industry you work with always like, you never work with different pools all the time, right? There's always like the same pool that comes back. You always work with the same people. So as a producer, if you mess up your job and then your set is horrible and then your second one is also horrible, like your people are not gonna have fun working with you anymore.
They won't have faith in you.
They won't have faith in you producing anymore. Same way as a director, if he fails, then won't have faith in you, because people look up, like the whole crew kind of looks up to you as a producer. I wanna bring up like this little thing here that I've noticed. If you probably noticed too. Like as a producer, a good producer knows how to keep budget aside for the stupid little things. Like I'm serious. Like
contingency.
Like contingency, right? Because a good producer knows how to keep a contingency on lock. Because why? On set, when people are tired, when people are frustrated and all of that, hey, a sweet treats, some Timmy's, some Timmy's lemonade. Tim Hortons is a chain of coffee and beverages in Canada.
Donuts.
Dunkin' Donuts, but Canadian.
But it's a bit better. But the donuts are worse.
Like that's a good way. And like one thing I appreciated about you last time that you produced a project when I was directing was that we had some extra cash, and you decided, hey, listen, why not spend the extra little bit to get an Airbnb where we're staying at for the documentary shoot that has a jacuzzi. That was I
could have saved a couple $100, but I was like, you know what, we're gonna stay an extra night, let's just make sure.
Was that necessary? Least, Absolutely not. Did it bring morale up?
It's also the way that you leave the shoot off, where it's like, we were cared for that extra amount, and that makes you feel incredibly appreciated as a crew.
Exactly.
We've said it a bunch of times in multiple podcasts, but like every production is a little family. And you leading the family, and like kind of just like you kind of want to make sure that it feels that way, and there is time for people to just bond and just like outside of the production. Depends on the production, obviously, if things are very difficult and like tight on time, but you try your best to make everyone, or give space to everyone to bond. And like to your point, you can only do that if you're smart with budget.
But that's why producing is hard, because you have to be cold-hearted and very rational and logistical, but you also have to be very empathetic. True. Whether a director only needs to be empathetic, let's be honest here. Only needs to be like a hippie, but you have to be both as a producer.
Would you say now I want you guys to answer this as directors, right? How much more difficult would your job be without a producer?
I don't know if it's possible without a producer. Depending on the scope. I mean, you could do a very small idea and make it work with a crash crew. But if you have someone who's exclusively thinking about deadline, and this is more AD work, but on smaller sets you may not have an AD, someone who's thinking about the timing, thinking about when people are pushing their limits, going overload, being conscious of what's coming out of everyone, so that can be noticed and salvaged and used efficiently. Because as a creative, you kind of burn yourself out without realizing. And to be able to have someone who's aware of that and their focus is managing that output is crucial.
Directing is a very, very precise job. You want to get your vision down to a T. Many filmmakers starting out obviously produce and direct their own films, and
almost exclusively,
right? But what happens with that is that there's this conversation that comes back all the time with like the starters, the ones who are starting, right? They're always like, I'm not satisfied with my end product, because they were focused on many other things except for directing. Like, directing from like an external point of view seems like a very easy job, because the director just basically just sits there and just points at things, right? Like, that's from an external point of view. But you have to understand that a director has to keep all that focus, has to understand. An experienced director will understand that they have to use all that focus that they have just to get their vision right.
And a lot of the work is done in prep.
Yeah. And if the director has to manage creative and logistics, especially like pre-prod for a producer, is the biggest job, is the hardest
setting
job.
Up the meetings, making sure everyone's there,
planning
rehearsals for them,
location releases, finding location scouts.
Imagine you're directing a shoot and you also have to have in the back of your mind, okay, I gotta have like lunch ready for everyone at this time. I gotta tell everyone to break for lunch at this time, and I gotta tell myself we won't do another take, we're gonna break for lunch. That's probably not gonna happen. You need someone there to be aware and have those things ready to go, because you're worrying about everything in reality and not worrying about everything creatively when the time comes.
Like, imagine in a restaurant, right? A chef has to also manage the restaurant.
It becomes very heavy.
And has to manage the cash register too, and all of that. Oh my God.
A lot of comparisons to restaurants and cooking and film.
Yeah, because well, we all have experience. Well, me and Yenny, we know we have experience in the restaurant industry, and it's like there's a lot of analogies.
Where are you sourcing your meat from? Is it the most cost efficient for the quality?
It's 100% that. As a producer, that's what you're doing. You're sourcing the meat. You're sourcing the vegetables. What plates are we gonna serve things on?
Is it coming on time?
Yes.
It's coming on time.
Yep.
Is the chef gonna be able to actually think about that, or is the chef gonna be thinking about delivering the plate how it's supposed to be?
Yeah. It's like the chef wants to do this cool plate, and he has a whole menu planned out. Well, it's your job to source all the ingredients for him to do it, and that comes with budget constraints, and also who are these suppliers, where are you sourcing them from? Is it out of town? That's not gonna be possible, a lot of things.
You don't want the director to come on set and be tired already. But if a producer comes on set and he's like at half energy, then he's done his job right.
Exactly. I was gonna say that. If the producer's kind of tired on set, he probably did his job in the pre-production.
Yeah. And also a good producer is smart enough to know that they're gonna be tired by the time production starts. That's why they have to be smart enough to know how to delegate where they need to. That's why there's a first AD, so a producer doesn't need to take care of like that, or they have PAs to take care of like, oh yeah, I don't need to think about buying food for the crew, I can just send a PA. Or like now there's like a thing called exec and line, that we're starting to we're working with the system a lot. And having an exec in line, because our projects are getting bigger, also helps a lot. Somebody that is solely focused on client relations and paperwork, and somebody else that is in the field.
Working with the team day to day.
Just to break down very quickly what Yenny means by that, if people don't really understand what a line or exec producer is, like as an executive producer, your communication is upwards towards the client. right? If we had to picture it up or down, and your job is all about client relationship. Like, you're supposed to develop that relationship with the client, make
securing funds,
negotiating, you know, all that relationship is the job of the exec producer. And then you have a producer, which his communication is downwards towards the team and the production.
Yeah.
In an ideal world, the executive producer doesn't have to like figure out who he's hiring. You know, his job is to focus on the client and make sure that the client is happy throughout the entire process.
Yeah.
And the producer's job is to make sure that the team is happy during the entire process.
Yeah, and they work well together.
Exactly.
You know?
Tell me if I'm wrong for this, but would you categorize exec like using more of your analytical brain, and then line as using more your logistical side of your brain?
I would agree with that. I would add to exec that you use a lot of your sales, like part of
communication
skills. Yeah, because you are, as the exec prod, since you're the link to the client, you're the one closing the contract, you're the one negotiating the contract. All that is sales skills and communication skills. Right?
You're trying to foster a healthy relationship and keep it healthy.
You kind of want to make sure the client is comfortable in this whole crazy.
They don't have any fears.
Yeah, they don't have any fears. You want to put them at ease. You know, you want to make sure that they are updated and understand what the process is.
That's why people don't like producers. They all think they're scammers and devil-tongued liars.
Yeah. I think a really interesting thing to highlight too is keeping good relationships, whether you're exec or line. And a lot of times that comes down to crew relationships. And I think, you know, there's a lot of red flags you could think about where a bad producer is defined by the people they've worked with in the past.
Yeah.
The bad producer doesn't know they're a bad producer, but if people don't want to work with them a second time, that can show that you didn't manage things properly, and you're not going to be a trustworthy name that someone thinks about to take this idea and help make it work.
Right.
Reputation is everything, and there's a lot that goes into that, especially in the work of a producer.
Producer is daddy.
He has the wallet. Well, anyways, thank you all for tuning into this episode of the LG podcast. I hope you learned something from it. If you are a producer or director, if you work in the field, let us know in the comments what you would like us to talk about next time, and please make sure that you're subscribed and you have the notification bell on, and I'll see you next time.
See ya.